in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Obi Trice, real name, no gimmick.
Oh, I've been shaking. I love it when you go crazy. You take all my inhibitions. Baby, there's nothing holding me back. Sometimes I'm grumpy too.
We're up.
Hey, we're up. Episode 3, baby.
That's right. That's right. What's going on, world? What's going on?
How's it going? Jay, how's it going, man? How you been doing this last month since the last time I saw you?
Oh, I've been working hard, way too hard.
That's civilian life, baby.
I don't want the civilian life. I shouldn't have to be in a civilian life. I retired so I can be less stressed and less. It's not.
Real quick question for you. I've been wondering this, and I keep forgetting to ask you. So you were a Navy recruiter, which is probably the hardest job, one of the hardest jobs in the Navy.
Yes.
How does this compare, the civilian HR job you got, compared to Navy recruiting? Harder, easier, different? What?
It's different because in the in the Navy you can really say what you want to say and not really have to worry about it. But being in the actual HR world, it is very difficult for me to hold my tongue. So I have to not say some things, and then I have to pacify people and say, "Oh, don't worry, it's all right. I'll make sure this works." And and then as a recruiter, I'm just like, "Hey, get your ass over there. Make sure this happens. Hey, where the hell are you? It's 9:05. Why aren't you here?"
Right.
In the civilian world, you can't. It's not that way because they come in when they want to come in. Well, we come in because I'm a civilian now, so I have to keep saying that.
You're a dirty ass civilian.
But we do what we want to do. Go to lunch when we want to go to lunch. Come back when we want to come back. Hey,
that's crazy. You know what though? I've noticed something I really like about civilian life. That thing called time and a half and double time pay. I dig it, baby.
I'm not time and a half. I'm salaried.
Oh yeah, daddy's time and a half and double time. I got a little double time too.
If I could do time and a half, double time, any overtime at all, I would be at work at like 6 and I wouldn't leave till like midnight. So I would make sure that I get every single bit of time that I could get.
Yeah. But hey, dude, before we get started, what are you drinking on, man?
So I have this it's a little rum and lemonade with some strawberry lemonade mix. And it's clear like this because I put a little bit too much rum in it. So
I'll tell you what, you should give Jamie the recipe. I think she'll love it.
I'm just letting you know, probably by the middle of this podcast, I might be saying some things that I shouldn't be saying.
That's
because
all right.
it's a strong drink. So I think that I might be saying some things. I'm going to go ahead and just bring on our guest. She's a Air Force vet. She's a motivational speaker. She does a lot. She has a podcast. She's out there in the gym, motivating people to be in the gym. I tried to listen to her stuff on Instagram, but she was a little bit too motivational for me, and I really don't want to go to the gym. So I decided to not listen to her too much on there. So I said I'm trying to study her and say, hey, let me see what she's about. And then she motivated me a little bit to go to the gym. And I went one day, and I was like, this is not for me. So let me go ahead and just stop doing this and stop listening to her because I don't want to be that motivated because I'm retired and I really don't want to be in the gym. So, but I want to bring on our special guest, Air Force veteran, Jodi Watkins.
Oh man, you got me rolling here.
Yeah, I mean in the gym. Like I went to the gym the very first day that I looked you up because Heath was like, oh, we got somebody that's coming on. She's an Air Force veteran. I was like, let me see. I gotta do my research so I wouldn't look crazy when she comes on, so I know a little bit about her. And then I saw a motivational video. I started from the beginning. I went down here.
Oh wow!
Instagram. I was just like, let me scroll. Let's go all the way down. And I was like, oh, she's in the gym. All right, good to go. Oh, she looks motivational. Let me go to the gym. I'm gonna hit this gym right quick. I went to the gym and when I was done, I was like, you know what? Screw Jodi. I can't. I'm not going to the gym again. I was like, and when I started going through to look for you for some things about you. I skipped anything that had to do with the gym or any of that stuff. I just looked at the motivational stuff. You had some pictures on there, you know, your son and stuff like that. I was like, oh, this is good. This is good. I can get with this stuff, but no.
That's funny. Don't go follow the. So I have another business page. It's To Be Epic Fitness and Nutrition, which is my company. And so don't go follow that one because there's a lot of working out and nutrition.
No.
And it's not just me. I mentor other coaches, so it's them.
No, you're talking about nutrition. I'm retired now. I can eat what I want to eat, when I want to eat it, and how I want to eat it. I'm single. It's just me, so I just sit in the house eating on cookies all day. But if I look at your stuff, I won't be able to just do that. I'll be actually trying to not eat cookies all day.
Well, here's what I'll tell you. I got into all of that. We can probably go into this later, but I got into all of that for reasons way beyond achieving a look. And it started back, I was taking care of my mom actually, and she had multiple sclerosis. And then I had 5 surgeries by that time also. So what I was learning was when I would come out of physical therapy, I didn't know what to do after that, And so that's why I learned nutrition to get my mom off of some of her medications. And I learned personal training to learn how to not get injured anymore as much as possible.
And see, I have MS. So I really don't need to be on that other page because you'll be trying to tell me, oh, you have MS, you need to go ahead and do this, you need to be this way, you need to be that way. No,
I don't do that. No, I don't do that.
I just want to be. I gained some weight because when I had my retirement ceremony, people were coming up to me. It was like, your uniform's a little tight. Your uniform is just a tad bit too tight. I'm like, I'm retired.
Right.
What am I supposed to do? So, But look, we have back here. We have Heath back.
Guys,
there he is.
I don't have Boost Mobile internet, but I must have Boost Mobile electricity because I lost power real quick. My bad. I apologize.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it's just a flicker, but it kicked off my internet, enough to kick off my internet. So I had to wait for my quick fiber come back really quick, though.
But see, that's what happens when you have all that stuff. You see the big sign in the back that he has there? It probably lights up.
It's not even on. It's not even on, though.
It doesn't matter. You still have it. You have it enough to where you're pulling so much electricity to you have a podcast room. Like you don't have I have an area. Like I took my dining room in my apartment and I made it into my office. And I just put my my shadow box up today just so I can have that in the background. But we're not like you. We don't get to have a podcast room with all the electricity being forwarded over there with 15 ring lights.
I hope you gave Jodi a proper introduction since I was indisposed.
Yeah, he did good. He did good. He had me rolling. I got on like I was just already laughing. Didn't even keep a straight face.
I'm not the intro person, so the intro person wasn't here, and I gave it my best.
I'm sure you did good.
You did a great job. You did a great job.
Thank you. I was trying. I was trying to get out here and make it happen, but.
No, I just want to say, Jodi, thanks for coming on the show because I was indisposed. I'm so excited. You got so much under your belt. You're a podcaster, you're an author, you're a coach, you're an entrepreneur, you're retired. I'm not retired, but you're an Air Force vet. I can't wait to get into your story.
I've been waiting to hear this story since she said, "Oh, it's a story." And I was just like, that's the first thing I want to hear. I want to hear this story. I want to hear the story about.
I don't know exactly how far y'all gotten. Has she introduced herself?
No, because we were talking about. I went, so I'm gonna just give you what I said. I went on her page to look her up, and I saw she was doing a lot of fitness stuff and doing stuff. I went to the gym one day, and I didn't like it, so I stopped looking at what she was doing.
He said he couldn't watch my stuff anymore.
I can't watch
that's how I first found you was when I me and my wife did the E14 podcast, and we follow you on there, and I saw you doing some crazy gym posts. You're always in the gym. So let's get started, though.
It's my mental health.
That's good.
I was just going to say it's my mental health.
That's
I just
good.
rather be crazy.
Well, let's get started. Tell us about yourself. Let's do this.
Oh man, where do I start? Let's see. I grew up in a small town called Fernandina Beach. It's right north of Jacksonville, Florida. Goodness, when I was 3, my dad left, and my mom ended up. It was just she and I, and then she ended up remarrying. But he was an abuser. And she became an alcoholic. He was a drug addict. He was paranoid schizophrenic, and it kind of just went from there.
Wow.
So that's the beginning. What else do you want to know?
Well, I know you served your country for a while.
I did. Yeah. It's funny. I was talking about this earlier with somebody on the plane because I just flew. today, and I was telling him, I was like, yeah, I never planned on joining the military. I really didn't. My grandfather was the only person I knew that had been in the military. He was in the Army. But other than that, you know, I wasn't in a military family, and I didn't really know anybody, you know, that was in the military. So I never really thought about it. But when I was in high school, I had family out in California. So my dad's side, I still kept in touch. My mom kept in touch with a couple people over there. And so I ended up going out to California when I was 16. And when I got back, nobody was at the airport to pick me up. And so I became homeless at that point.
Wow.
And so that was my junior year of high school. So I was actually working towards a scholarship to Duke University. I'd been picked up by Duke for academics, and I was working towards that. But then when that happened, of course, grades started kind of plummeting. I was playing basketball at the time, and my basketball coach was trying to help me as much as possible, but she could only do so much. I graduated high school. I had been kind of living with different people those next couple years. I did graduate, thank God. But I was homeless. I was living out in my car at that time. So I did end up purchasing a really, you know, cheap car, and was just basically living out of the car. And my cousin, she's not my blood cousin, but I call her my cousin. She's more like a big sister. She always looks
Country
out for us.
cousin.
We grew up
Country
together.
cousin.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Because I'm an only child, so I didn't have any sisters or brothers. So I had, you know, family doesn't have to be blood family, right? It's the people that look out for you. So anyway, she reached out and she said, hey, you know, she was down in Gainesville, Florida. She's 3 years older than me. And she said, hey, I'm down here, you know, come on down here, see if you like it and whatever. So anyway, I went down there. I went to school, played basketball a little bit, but I was working 3 jobs. It was crazy. And I ended up moving back to Jacksonville. My mom was staying in my grandparents' house at the time. And I lived there. I hadn't lived with her since I was, you know, 16. And so I was 21 at this time, 21. And it was rough. So
Yeah, but
next thing I knew, I was at the Air Force recruiter.
Right. Real quick though, before you get into the Air Force. So you were a child living on your own. I mean, you were under the age of, you were 16 when you were on your
nobody
own?
was at the airport. I ended up calling, you know, back then we didn't have cell phones, so you actually knew people's phone numbers. So
Yeah.
I actually ended up calling. You remember that? They don't know anything about that these days, but yeah. So I ended up calling one of the other, you know, I had like 3 moms, right? And so I called this other lady that I knew, grew up with her son too, and I said, hey, can you come pick me up? Like, nobody's here. I was in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm from Fernie, so it's about 45 minutes away. So it's not like I could walk home or anything.
Right.
So that happened. Yeah.
I'm surprised the law didn't get involved. Like, you know, you can't just do that.
They did.
That's illegal.
No, they did.
They did? Oh, okay.
They came to the house a lot. I called them some, and you know, because it was a very toxic household. Like I started writing when I was 15 to get away from it. I would go down to the beach because, you know, small town, we were close to the beach. I could always ride my bike, walk, whatever. And so I would always go to the beach and write. I just started writing, and that was my outlet. That was how I kind of got through everything. And so, yeah, it was just, I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And
yeah,
it's funny.
Awesome.
I almost ended up in the Army, but then I ended up in the Air Force. So.
So take us back. So you went to the Air Force recruiter and you joined. Is that when you joined? Right then?
I did. Well, like I said, I almost went in the Army. So I had an Army recruiter. I was telling somebody about this the other day too. And they had I don't know if you guys ever heard of Bell South. It was one of the phone companies back in the day.
Yeah, we had that.
They had
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. So yeah, so I worked at a Sears, and I worked at a customer service when I was in Gainesville. And so I worked in a Bell South customer service. Like, they would come do their payment. It was like a payment center or whatever. So people would come pay. That was back before we had, you know, online pays and all that. Right. And so anyway, this lady would come in. She was an Army recruiter, and she would come in, and she knew, you know, we got to know each other. She found out I was kind of struggling in college and, you know, working like crazy and not really sleeping. And, you know, and so she almost got me. I actually ended up in the delayed enlistment program for the Army. And then some stuff happened, and I pulled out. I think it was more kind of just fear of the unknown, but I pulled out of that. But I ended up moving. Like I said, I moved back to Jacksonville. Some stuff happened up that way, and it just, you know, I tell people, I'm like, it doesn't matter where you go. If you're not healing from your baggage is going to go everywhere with you, and that's what I learned.
That's true.
even in the military. We can talk about that later. But yeah, so I ended up. It was actually in between Air Force and Marines. Because I had been going to college for sports and exercise science. I was wanted to be an athletic trainer at that point. I played basketball. I was always around athletes. And so I was like, I want to learn more about this. And so I started doing that. So I was kind of looking at the Marines just to kind of keep me fit and keep me in shape.
Right.
But I had some Marine friends. They were like, don't do it. And I
You
think
picked the
back
right
then,
one.
that's
You picked the right one. I did. I was in the Marines before I came into the Navy. You did the right thing.
Okay. And I've heard some horror stories, especially with females that were in the Marines. So, some, but there's horror stories everywhere. I have some of my own, even in the Air Force. So, but anyway, yeah. So I went to the Air Force recruiter, started working with him, and I was just like, I gotta get out of here. And he was like, well, what job do you want? And I didn't really know. I was like, well, I'm doing sports and exercise science. I'm into fitness. They didn't have anything for that. And so I was like, okay, well, what's left? So I ended up having to go in. I went in open electronics. So my ASVAB scores somehow were good in electronics, which I don't even know how that happened because I did nothing in electronics ever. But they were good in electronics. So he was like, okay, you can go in open electronics. So that's what I did. And I didn't even know what I was going to be doing until halfway through tech school. So that was fun.
Right.
I thought I was going to be working on computers. Nope, not at all.
That's how to get you. That's how we get you. I was a Navy recruiter, so that's how we get you. We got to make sure that you're in.
And that's why when parents reach out to me, they're like, "Hey, my kid wants to go into the military. Will you come talk to him?" I'm like, "Yep," because I'm gonna keep you from getting messed over.
Getting okie doked.
Yep.
Hey, we got to get out. We got a
exactly what
quota.
you want to hear.
Hey, we got a quota. We got to make this quota.
I
I'm
know.
out now. I can tell the stories. I can tell the stories now. I can tell we got a quota. Sometimes you got to lie.
No, I
You
know.
say.
And I've known some recruiters. I've met some recruiters along the way, and they've told me, I know. But yeah, so that's where it started. So I ended up, I joined January 5th, 2000, right after New Year's. And that's kind of the start of that journey, where that started.
Wow. You know what? I'm old. Everybody having a show, I joined before them. Or yeah.
Well, you got to remember, I didn't come right out of high school either.
I didn't either. That's the bad part.
Okay, never mind. I was trying to make you feel better, man.
I came in 95. When'd you come in? When'd you get in the Marines, Jay?
96.
Okay, when I graduated high school.
You're old. Heath, you're old. Just get over it. Like you get embrace the oldness.
It's not called grumpy young vets.
Right.
Well, you're the old part. I'm the grumpy part.
That's true. Well, I'll give you that.
That's funny.
Now, Jodi, I always assumed that you retired. I don't know why I assumed that, but how long did you actually do? Yeah, I apologize. So you did.
No, you're fine. You're fine. 15
wow,
total,
you were 5 years from the finish line.
15.
Oh, I know. It took me a lot of time and therapy to get through all that. It was hard. It was hard. It was a hard pill to swallow. I will tell you that because I planned on retiring.
So can I ask
yes,
why you didn't
I can
do
talk
20?
about it now.
Oh, here we go. This is the story.
I gotta know.
I actually, okay. So in 2018, the end of 2018. Well, I don't want to get there yet. Okay, let's go back.
We need the whole story. Don't leave.
I know. Okay,
Okay. So this podcast, we're not sponsored by the military. We're uncensored.
I don't care anyway. I'm
uncensored anyway. We bring people on so we can speak our truth, even if it's things that happen to us that were in the military that was bad. That we want to get out there so people would know what we go through, what we really go through in the military, because people think it's sugar and cream all the time, but there are some things that we go through. So,
and I get, I especially, and I have friends that are in all branches, right? So I get a lot. I used to get a lot of havoc about, chair force, right? Air Force, chair force, whatever. I worked on the flight line. I was one of the only females. I was one of the only females on the flight line. So all of y'all can kiss my butt. Because I did not there was none of that where I worked. But so I ended up, let's see, I got in, I found out what my job was going to be. I got stationed, I got to my duty station, whatever. And I was, I would deploy or whatever. I got orders to England. in 2005 to become an instructor. So that was great because I love to interact. I love to teach. Come to find out, I didn't know that, but I love to teach. And so I went to England to basically teach my career field. So I got there in 2005. In 2003, my mom got diagnosed with MS, with multiple sclerosis. So fast forward 2000, I was deployed at that time. Fast forward 2005, I get to England. I'm there for 2 years. My mom ends up contacting me, and she contracted HIV in 2007. So they wouldn't let her move to England with an existing conditions. I'd been trying to get her over there. They wouldn't let her move over there because she had the multiple sclerosis. They wouldn't let her over there because over there they have socialized medicine, there's taxation, stuff like that. So people are taken care of in a certain manner if they are in that country, right? If they're citizens to that country, but they won't let somebody come in if they already have that existing condition. So found that out. So anyway, when she contracted HIV, her doctor wrote a letter for me, and I ended up moving back to the States. So I ended up on a humanitarian orders ended up in Valdosta, Georgia. And because I was married at that time and they couldn't place both of us. I wanted to go to Tampa, Florida, but they couldn't place us both there. So they placed us in Valdosta, Georgia, and that was 2 hours from where I had to drive to take care of her. So that
Jodi,
was close.
how long were you in England before they pulled you back?
2 years.
Oh, 2 years? Okay.
Yeah,
so you get some good time there.
Yeah, it was good. It was because it was my first overseas base. So I mean, I'd been deployed before then, but it was nice to be stationed somewhere else. And I was single at the time, and so we had fun. We go out and whatever. And I was playing basketball, so we would travel in Europe to play basketball, and so it was fun. It was a good time. But that happened, and they got us back pretty quick. Come to find out, I had a good friend that reached out to me not too long ago, and she said, "Hey, I know you didn't know this, but I got you back to the States." She got us, so I guess she pushed everything through for me.
Wow.
So that's why it happened so fast, because it was like that. Yeah, it was like that. But she played basketball with me too. So anyway, we got back to Valdosta, and I had been driving to Jacksonville back and forth the whole time. So I was working night shift. This is part of the story that a lot of people don't know. I was working night shift. I would get off work. I would drive down, take care of my mom, whatever she needed, take her to the doctor's appointments, whatever that looked like. And then I would get back on the road. I would take a nap at the rest stop on the way. And because you got to remember, I work night shift, right? So I'm pretty tired by about 2:00 p.m.
I'm sure.
And so I would take a nap on the road, and then, go back to the house. And we didn't have any kids back then. So I would take another nap and then go back to work. And so that was happening. And I got very interested in healthcare and doctor, like trying to learn, because they would give her, she was on Medicaid, so she didn't have the best insurance. So they would just give her whatever. Yeah. And what was happening was she had so many conditions. And I mean, she had a lot going on. There was mental disorders, thyroid issues, stuff like that. So anyway, there was so much that they would give her these medications, and they would be interacting with each other. And her antidepressants were making her more depressed. They were making her suicidal.
Wow.
And I'm that type of person where I'm just like, you know what, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be something else, right? So I did. I just ended up kind of diving into nutrition, and I learned nutrition, and I learned about protein and brain health and how that worked with each other. And I took a pharmacology course so I could learn all the medications that she was taking. And I just got very interested. I was volunteering at the rehab facility she was in for a little while. And so anyway, I started taking prerequisites. The Air Force had a PA school, a program for physician assistant program. It was an officer's program. And so I got very interested, and I wanted to kind of get more into the medicine side of things. And I started taking all the prerequisites for that. Well, 2009, my mom passed away. I was pregnant at the time. And so we had our daughter 3 months after my mom passed away. I was taking my finals during that time too. So when it comes to resiliency, this is what I tell people, like, we can keep going, right? It's a matter of how important is it to keep going. And for me, it was very important because I had worked really hard already for that program. And so I just kept going. And the problem with that though, is I never allowed myself to heal. I never allowed myself to grieve. So when I got to PA school, I did get accepted to the program, which they didn't accept everybody. It was very difficult to get in. So I was like, oh my God, I got in, right? And as I was in the, the classes and we were going over certain stuff, I was getting triggered bad.
Right.
Um,
Wow.
the diseases, the bacterial infection that took my mom out, like the fact that I was still mad at the rehab facility that she was in because I was her primary contact and I didn't find out 2 days later that she was in ICU. So it was basically it was too late.
Wow.
There was a lot of stuff that I just, because in the military we didn't really do that either, right? We didn't have emotion, right? Like,
Right.
you sucked it up and you kept going. And then, like I said, I was telling you guys earlier on in my life, that's what I learned too. Like I didn't go to school and talk about what was happening in my house, right? Like I got taught to basically shut up and color my whole entire life.
So right quick before we go on, that's something
Mm-hmm.
to expound upon because people don't understand that when you're a veteran, you've been in the military, things like that, your emotions aren't really out there like everyone else. They don't understand why you don't express yourself the way that a regular civilian would express themselves because when you're in boot camp, you pretty much, I don't know if you want to call it being brainwashed, but you're pretty much told that for me, coming from the Marines and boot camp, I was pretty much told that you're a Marine first. Like everything else is secondary and you need to suck it up because when you get out to the field, if something happens, then you can't really have that emotional breakdown at that time.
Yeah.
Right.
So you have to be able to take it and then pretty much later on you have to go in there and think about it. Like you'll be able to heal later on, but at that moment, you're not you that's not what you do.
Yeah.
I mean,
I didn't. I mean, go ahead.
no,
Sorry, I
it's,
didn't mean to cut you off.
just to piggyback what Jay says, our job in the military, as we all know, basically is to train to go to war. I mean, really, that's the ultimate, right? And if you're showing emotions in front of your brothers and sisters in arms, they're going to be like, holy crap, I don't want to go to war with this person. You think that in your head, even though it might not be true, but you suck it in. And you know what? Sooner or later, it's got to come out, right?
Yeah.
We're human. It's got to come out. Yeah. Go ahead though. Go ahead, Jodi. Go ahead. Carry on.
Yeah. But that's one of the things too, like kind of to go back a little bit when I got to my first duty station, like I said, back then there weren't too many females on the flight line. And I came in, I didn't have an electronic background. I didn't have a mechanic background, like I knew what tools looked like because I'd used them before, but I didn't know what they were called. Right. So I was already getting, I don't want to say made fun of, but I was already getting hoaxed for that, like just stupid stuff, right? And then I remember they had bets on how long it was going to take me to get pregnant, just stupid stuff, right? And I was just like, yo, what? You don't even know me, But unfortunately, I kind of turned to alcohol, and so that's why earlier I was kind of like, I quit drinking a few years ago, and that's a story in itself too. But I turned to alcohol, and I wasn't as bad as my mom, so I never really thought about it as like an alcoholic per se. But something happened earlier on too, and I should have woke up then, but I didn't. But I had a drink, I guess, got drugged, and I ended up like cussing out one of the chiefs that night. Like I don't remember anything, but something really bad could happen that night too. But when you don't heal, it's like you find whatever you can find, and it's not usually the best option. So
right.
But yeah, that was crazy too. But yeah, just fast forward, I ended up not going through the PA program. Like I ended up being relieved from the program. I started getting a lot of test anxiety. I was second guessing myself a lot. I was really not getting a whole lot of sleep. There was just a lot going on. And like I said, I just had not healed, but I didn't realize that was what was going on. Like I was faulting myself for my mom's death, which that wasn't my fault, but I was faulting myself because I wasn't there. Just little things were starting to pile up. So when I got relieved from that program, it was literally like a dagger in the heart. Like I wrote a poem called Dagger in the Heart. Like it was a dagger in the heart. It was just like, oh my God, I worked so hard for this. I was taking finals, right? Pregnant, my mom sick. I'm taking all these freaking courses to try to get in this program. And so I just kept thinking about those things. And so I was like, okay, well, what else can I do? And so I was going to do, there was a lieutenant colonel. He was like, hey, we got this social worker program because he heard my story and why I was there. He was on the board that relieved me from the program. And he said, you know, we got this social worker program. I think you'd be really good with that. But the only thing is you have to join the Army. And I was just like, man, I just had a kid. My husband's in the Air Force. You know, like it was just too much. I couldn't even make that decision at the time. And so I ended up going back to Georgia. They sent me right back to where I just left. They gave me a going away party. I was going to officer training school. So you gotta, man, I tell you, it was so hard to go back to that flight line. But I did it because I had to. I didn't have a choice. And nobody really gave me any trouble for it. Because by then I had a lot of respect from people. I worked really hard. I think I was E6 by then. Yeah, I was an E6 by then. And everybody respected me. I mentored people all the time, and I was always that go-to person that people would come talk to. So I was like, well, I'm going to try nursing school. They had a nursing program. So I started doing stuff for nursing school. I ended up deploying. I couldn't take one of the courses they required, and so that didn't work out. So I was just kind of like, what can I do? Right? Like, so I kept going. I became a certified personal trainer. I became a certified nutrition and health coach that year in 2013. I was still active duty at that time. And then I ended up going over to the reserve recruiter. And I was like, hey, I want to do something medical. What can I do? And so they had a program called Palace Chase. We ended up finding a job. It was a medical lab tech, which is basically the people that take your blood and then test it. So they had that job open, and it was actually at the same base. And I was like, well, that works out perfectly, right? So my husband was deployed at the time, so I was telling him about everything, and I was just like, hey, are you going to support this? Because the tech school was 13 months.
Wow,
so
wow.
And so he's going to be single dad, right? Like you're going to be single dad mode for 13
That's
months.
a long one.
Yeah.
Which she ended up coming with me for the last 9 months because it was considered a PCS for that last 9 months because it was so long. So she was coming with me because the night before I was leaving for tech school to drive to San Antonio, Texas from Georgia, he got orders to Japan. Oof. So that put a wrench in everything, right? Because I just got that job. It was at the same base. Everything was going great. And then he gets orders to Japan. And I'm like, so I'm calling my unit. I'm like, what do y'all want me to do? I'm supposed to leave tomorrow. He just got orders. And they were like, well, we already slotted you. We've already paid for it. Just go ahead and go. I'm like, all right. So I drive to San Antonio. This was 2014. Drive to San Antonio. It was like 4 months there. And then 9 months at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. So my daughter comes down with me. My husband's trying to sell the house and go to Japan. And I still had, tech school to do. So I just finished up tech school. And when I went to go graduate tech school, I'm contacting my unit and I'm like, hey, what am I going to do? Can I work over in Japan? And they were like, no, you're going to have to stay here. And I was like, oh, no, I don't want to separate my family anymore. This is enough. And so I ended up making the decision to go to Japan, and I basically ended my career making that decision. I had no idea, but I ended my career when I made that decision.
So why would you say that ended your career?
Because when I got over there, the labs over there wanted me to work with them. There was an Air Force Base, Kadena Air Force Base in Okinawa, Japan. Yep, I had already been in contact with them. Yep. I had already been in contact with them. They were loving it. Yes, come over here. We need you. Cool. Well, my unit in Georgia wouldn't support me working over there because I was taking a slot from them. So either I had to fly from Japan every month, which they were not going to pay for.
Nope.
Or I had to go inactive reserve. So after fighting and trying, and because I don't just roll over very quickly, it took me about 1.5 years of fighting. And I finally just said, okay, put me in active. And they did. And when they put me in active, I didn't know that I needed to take another PT test, physical training test, before. So I had to do that, I guess, in 2017. But of course, they didn't notify me and I didn't know, right? You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So 2018, the end of 2018, we're coming back to the States. I'm calling the recruiter, hey, we're heading back. I'm trying to get back into the reserves. I want to retire. Right? That was my plan. And what they said was, they were like, well, you have disability, so you're going to have to get off your disability. And I was like, well, that's what's going to pay my rent for a little while.
Yeah.
So it was just one door after the other, just kept shutting and shutting. And
wow. Wow. So, I mean, you did a lot of time, 15 years, and it sounded like kind of a hell of a ride for those 15 years. You were dealing with a lot of professional and a lot of personal stuff with your mom and everything. So
Yeah.
that kick in the ass, so you're out. And you decided to go inactive, but that wasn't without a lot of fighting to try to stay in. So you're
Right.
exhausted.
Right.
So when you finally said,
Yeah.
"Look, I just go inactive," how did you feel about that? Like you personally?
I was mad. I was upset. I was pissed, to be honest. Because I fought really hard to get transferred to Hickam, Hawaii,
Right.
because I was like, okay, well, that's closer, right? It was closer to Japan. I was trying to get to Guam so I could just take a space A and go back and forth. Um, but they ended up transferring me to Hickam. Well, what I found out when I went down to the space A people and talked to them, they were like, oh, well, you can't fly for free. You can't fly as a spouse, and you won't be on orders until you get there. So basically what they were saying was I could only fly twice a year as a spouse. So there went that, right? Because I got to be there every month. That was part of the agreement. I
And
had to be there every month.
I've done that. I've done that ticket to Japan. That's a not a very
It
thrifty
was just
ticket.
as right. It was just as bad as coming back to the States. I was like,
You're
I might as well
talking
just
2 grand a flight, right? I mean, around
yeah,
2 grand a flight.
exactly. Yeah.
It's,
Yeah,
yeah,
even to Hawaii,
yeah,
it was the same.
yeah. It's
And so I
expensive.
was just like, man, to make $100 for a weekend, to spend 2 grand to make $100, like
Right,
I couldn't do it. I couldn't even do it if I wanted to.
right. It
You
wasn't
know.
worth it. I mean,
So
at
yeah,
the end of the line, you gotta draw that sand, that line in the sand,
yeah.
saying, "Look, I can't do this." Well,
Yeah.
so you got out, and this was what 2018.
That's when I found well, it was actually into 2019 after I did my next security clearance. It was into 2019 when it was basically I had exhausted everything. I mean, I was going to the guard. I was gonna change job. I was gonna go do officer. I mean, I had a master's degree, whatever. I
Right.
was trying anything and everything I could. But they said because I didn't get that test in, that physical fitness test, I had to go back through MEPS. And
Oh
if I went
no.
back through MEPS with
Oh,
disability, right? Like that's like, are
No,
you
no.
serious? Like
yeah.
I was like, how MEPS? Like I'm a tech sergeant. Like I'm an E, I'm an E6. Like how you
Right.
gonna tell me I gotta go back through MEPS? So it was really hard to be honest. And but because I was so I will say I was a habitual compartmentalizer
Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
point, right? So
Right.
I just kept going. But it led me down a very dark path doing that.
Well, that kills me though, because it was 2019. You're talking less than 3 years ago, less than 4 years ago.
Yep.
So, and look at you of accomplishing those in that time, and you talked about a dark path after that. So would you willing to tell us how dark it got?
Um, yeah, well, 2019, it was just my daughter and I, because my husband actually got stationed in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but he was about to retire. So I was like, well, I don't want to keep moving her around. So we just
Right.
went back to Jacksonville, Florida, because that was where I was from. I knew what side of town to live on, what side not to live on, right?
Right.
So I was like, okay, we'll just go back here. So we ended up doing that. And he and I were kind of on the brinks too. I talked about that a little bit too. But so it was just a lot of unknowns. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go back to Jacksonville. So our daughter and I went back. But after all that was happening, like literally, like Jay was joking about the gym stuff. I got so depressed that I would literally not do anything, and that has
Mhm.
never been me.
Right.
Um, I would walk my daughter to the bus stop. I would make sure she got on the bus. She was 9 at the time. I'd make sure she got on the bus. I would go back to my apartment and I would literally just do absolutely nothing. My apartment was filled with boxes from TMO. I didn't want to do any of it. I was so overwhelmed, so just defeated at that point. I just felt like every time I tried something else, I couldn't make it. Um,
And
but I will say I think I ended up going, well, that's what happened. I ended up in my apartment one day and I fell to my knees one day and I just said, Lord, if you're there, I got nothing left. And that was the first time I'd ever done that. I wasn't the most spiritual person. I mean, I believed in God, but I always felt like God left me, let me down. So it was kind of one of
right.
those kind of back and forth things, relationships. But I ended up I went to a workshop one day, and like I said, I've been writing since I was a kid anyway. I went to a workshop and they were talking about using your pain for your purpose, and I tried to just get out a little bit and actually network a little bit, and just try to get out of the house. I had got a dog at that time too, and I always say I saved her, but she saved me because she forced me out of the apartment. I had to let her out so she could pee
Right,
and use the
right,
bathroom.
yeah.
So I always joke about that. I'm like, I had a walker. She was energetic, and so it forced me back out. So I started kind of networking a little bit, and I ended up in a workshop. So out of that, I started writing my book, and I really I wrote it, and I was like, I'm just gonna put everything in here that can help people. I put my daughter on the front cover, and when I published it, I was still ready to check out. I was ready to check out. I was just like, I got nothing. My husband retired at the end of 2019. And he moved back. He moved to Jacksonville. He got there right before COVID, actually.
Yeah.
And my book published in 2020, but I still had not healed. I just kept going, and it wasn't until 2021 where I was like, I need help. I need help. And I was coaching people the whole time. Empowering people, encouraging them to be healthier and live better lives. And I was drowning on the inside.
Well, it's like you know what to do, but you just can't make yourself do it, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's
Yeah.
it's mind-boggling what you can do outside the hell that people wouldn't even know that you're going through hell.
But it's that
Right.
healing that everybody needs. That healing. People don't understand how much they need that healing. It can be healing from something that happened to you when you were a child. It can be healing from a relationship. It can be healing from the military or whatever like that. But everybody has to have that healing. But with us in the military, we don't ever really think about that healing. We think about just pushing and moving forward and just making things happen.
Well, yeah, because we live in the moment. It's like, you have a million things to shove. You have 100 pounds of shoving a 5-pound bag.
Right.
Oh, I'll deal with that later. Right. I'll deal with that later.
Yeah.
I'll deal with that later. Okay.
Yeah.
Take care of the now and deal with that later. And you're talking about 20 plus years or 30 years of bullshit.
40. By the time I got to therapy, I was 43. So 40 years.
40 years. Talking about getting left.
We figured out. Yeah.
Getting left at the airport. Freaking living in your car. Getting screwed with while you're first joining the military, dealing with the military bullshit, getting out, dealing with the hardship of family, family life and military. It's just a roller coaster of shit, lack of better terms.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. So you said you went to counseling in 21. You said, I had enough. I'm going to counseling. You already had a published book, right? You were already a coach helping people out. You already started your civilian life per se, but you still hadn't fixed Jodi yet.
Right. And that was the game changer, to be honest. I contacted the VA and I said, I need help. And so I said, I need mental health, whatever. And so they ended up, taking me to the right person. And so I ended up in counseling, which ironically, the building that I had to go to was right next door to the rehab facility that my mom was in.
Ooh.
Wow.
Ouch. Right.
Wow,
Yeah.
right
the one I
there.
hated.
Wow.
That's a trigger
So the
right
first
there.
time I drove there, that was tough. And so when I went inside and I met my therapist, and she was an Army vet, come to find out, and we actually had a great relationship. But that was the first thing I told her. I said, I can't believe I had to drive here. And so we started kind of digging a little bit into my past, but she was supposed to be helping me with my present, right? So eventually, after I think a few months maybe, she said, have you ever thought about EMDR? I was like, what's that? Yeah. Well, it's a type of therapy, basically trauma therapy, where they go back into your past. So, I could go to my regular therapist for the present and the future, but I needed to heal from the past things. And that's what I had not done. So I was literally living in survival mode my entire life.
Yeah.
And so that's why I can recognize it very quickly now when somebody's there. But I ended up, I started going through that and then ended up in the EMDR. The first session of the EMDR, I sat in my car for like an hour and just cried. And I was just like, what is going on? I never had that much emotion after an hour of therapy, right? Like, I was just like, what is going on? So, but I kept going back. I had it weekly. And so I kept going back. And so that's another thing when it comes to consistency. It was very uncomfortable. I hated it. I didn't want to have to drive there. but I kept going back. And out of that, I was able to talk about all the things that had happened in my life, things that nobody knew, right? Because my mom was passed away, my stepdad was gone, you know, like everybody that was involved was gone. So
Right.
nobody really knew about anything unless I disclosed it. And so it was interesting. I came out of one of those therapy sessions one day and I just felt compelled to just, I think I ended up doing an Instagram live and I just started sharing it. And I was just like, why am I sharing this? Like, you know, whatever. I was just sharing that I just came out of therapy and stuff that I was going through. And it was crazy because I started getting like a ton of messages and just people reaching out like, thank you for sharing this. I needed to hear it. I'm going to look into this. I got to go to mental health too. Right. It's just like stuff like that. And I had one lady, she reached out and she was just like, I was on the verge of committing suicide.
Wow.
Right. And so you hear stuff like that. And I'm like, wait, what? Right. So I just kept kind of sharing a little bit. And out of that, I was able to heal through all of it. And I always say though, it's not a finished product. You don't just go through therapy and then you're magically healed. Like,
Right.
no, this is a daily thing. And my therapist actually asked, she diagnosed me with chronic depression, anxiety disorder, and complex PTSD. And I said, well, okay, what does that mean? Right? Like,
Yeah. Right.
she was like, well, right. She was like, well, I can put you on an antidepressant. I said, oh no, you already know how I feel about that, right? Because I told you that's how I got in nutrition. I said, no, I'm not taking anything. I said, I got the tools. I just got to use them.
Right.
So that's what I had to do. And that made me a much better coach because now I'm not just using the fitness and nutrition stuff. I'm using this stuff. I'm using hey, before I get to the gym, I got to work on this. I got to make sure, you know, when I start getting anxiety, I can become aware of it and not let it go out of control. And I have to. Those are the daily minute to minute things that I have to do. So it's just part of the journey.
If you don't know with anxiety, it's it's a hard thing to deal with anxiety. I know I have anxiety, and sometimes I have like panic attacks in the middle of the night. I'll just wake up and have a panic attack, and nobody knows what we go through. I'm big on mental, like anything that has to do with mental health. I'm big on it because I'm I guess you want to say a suicide survivor, and just that mental health is super important to me to for everybody to know that you don't have to struggle with that mental health. You can actually get help, and getting help it doesn't hurt you. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you weak or anything like that. It actually makes you strong. For you to go out there and know mentally that you need to get that help and that you took that step to get that help, then that's a strong thing to do. So mental health is something that's big to me. So I commend you for going and doing those things to actually get yourself right.
I appreciate it. I mean, it's still, I will say it, because even, what was it, the end of 2021, I was still in EMDR at that time. Christmas Eve, so my family, so we had the dog, my dog wouldn't go into boarding or whatever. Anyway, my family ended up going up to North Carolina because that's where my husband's from. Not thinking about all the things that I was really encountering and dealing with and all that stuff. So when I got left by myself, that's what I talk to people about. Don't be alone when you're depressed. Go find somebody. I don't care what you gotta do. Find somebody. I ended up getting really depressed. Christmas Eve, I talk about this now, but this is probably only the third time I've shared it. But Christmas Eve, I actually went into the bedroom. We had a gun in the house. It was not loaded. I will say that. But I'm a visual person. I'm a visual learner. I've always been like that. And I looked in the mirror. I grabbed the gun. I looked in the mirror and I put it to my chin like this. And I looked in the mirror. And my first thought was, I'm supposed to be taking care of my dog. So that's not going to work out if I do this. That was my first thought. My second thought was, what if my daughter finds me first? What would that do to her?
Yeah.
So I looked in the mirror and I literally asked myself, Jodi, what the hell are you doing? And I put the gun down and I went to church that night. Nobody knew that I had done that. Of course, I'm not going to go and talk about it that night. But I will tell you, that was the turning point for me. I said, I will never get that low again,
Yeah.
ever. And I ended up going back to therapy after the new year. I told my therapist what I did. And she said, well, how do you feel now? And I said, I will never let myself get that dark again.
Wow.
I said, I'm going to be better. I'm going to be better for myself. I'm going to be better for my kid. I'm going to be better for the people around me who need me. And I did. That's what I've been working on this whole
Good
time.
for you. Good for you. Now that what's it called? EDP. They where they go back and
EMDR. It's called EMDR. Yeah.
EMDR. Do you still
EMDR. Yeah. It's eye movement desensitization rehabilitation.
do you still do that regularly?
No, the VA only paid for a year, so that's
That's gone,
thank you,
huh?
VA. they only pay for a year, so that's one of the things you know. Hey,
Right.
guess what? Your therapy's ending. Oh, okay, thanks.
But
I will
if
say
somebody
my therapist.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say she did. We didn't just end without her feeling like I was okay to
Okay.
keep going.
Okay.
So I will say that she was an amazing person all around. She had been doing what she did for 30 years plus. She worked with a bunch of veterans. She just said, she did tell me, she said, your happy place was the beach when you were growing up, right? And I was like, yeah. She said, you're not that far now. And I said, I know. And she said, we'll go back. She said, every time you start feeling like you're falling out of control, go there. And I do. And I don't care if it's the middle of the day, and this is probably why I need to stay a business owner and an entrepreneur, because I don't need to work for anybody, because I need that flexibility, right? I need to be able, if I'm feeling like that, I got to be able to acknowledge it, and I got to be able to get, or at least maybe if it's not at the beach, I got to be able to get out. I got to be able to do something, and even if it's just going for a walk or whatever.
Not sitting those four walls.
Yeah, because
those 4 walls feel like they're closing on you.
Yeah,
you got to get out there. Those 4 walls will feel like they're closing on you.
They definitely.
Now, now, Jodi, we discussed some hard shit. I'm ready to brighten the mood up a little bit.
Yes.
Whoa, no, that's good. I'm glad you got to tell your story. That's awesome, because you know what, we get to talk about how you pulled yourself out of it. So, what are you doing these days?
Living a much better life. I will say that the people I'm around have changed. I keep myself around people who I'm that person who likes to support. I have this acronym called SEE. It's SEE, support, encourage, empower. And I say, you know what? That's my mission every single day. I want to support, encourage, and empower others. But hey, guess what? I need that too, right? So I have to surround myself by people who do that with me. And so that's been a huge game changer too, is just surrounding myself by better people. But I live by example. I don't ever ask my clients to do anything that I've never done or won't do. I become a lot more real with people. I don't hold anything back. They know that with me, they have a safe place. They can talk about whatever they need to. It's not just fitness and nutrition, that we can incorporate that, but it doesn't have to be. It's whatever people need. And now I get to work with a nonprofit out of Jacksonville, Florida. We're actually building their online presence so we can help more veterans and spouses worldwide. But they help veterans and spouses transition out of the military. It's called Operation New Uniform. I went through the program actually while I was in EMDR, and it helped me kind of not sell myself technically, but it helped me with confidence. Just to when I would go network, I felt a little bit better, about what I was doing and stuff like that. So it's just literally been the people that I've been around, and just making sure that I don't, I had to stop people pleasing. That was a bad habit of mine. So I had to stop people pleasing. Yep. My therapist and I talked about boundaries. I had to create some boundaries, which is still hard. I'm not going to lie. It's still hard.
Yeah.
I want to bend over backwards for people. But what I had to learn was I can't want it more than you do.
Right.
I can't.
That's perfect. That's perfectly said.
So if I do, and you don't, catch me later. Let me link you up with somebody else.
So there's a saying this radio personality used to say all the time when she got off the air: if you can't change the people around you, change the people around
you. Exactly.
So you don't want to. If you don't want to,
that's good.
You want to change with me and go along with me on this journey. We're going on. Then I'm sorry, you just
kick rocks.
Yeah, pretty much. You got to kick rocks. I'm sorry. That's what it is.
That's really hard for me because I want to help people, and I think it's because of how I grew up. Like I was always helping my mom. I was always taking care of her. I was always just that helper person, right? So, and then even the military, like I said, like people would come talk to me. I would always be the helper. I would always be the people that,
Yeah.
you know, when people are going through stuff, they would always come talk to me, which is great. But the problem with that was I wasn't taking care of me.
Yeah,
And I was
exactly.
literally just like letting people suck the life out of me
Mm-hmm.
You know, it
until it
reminds.
just got,
I think about that daggum airplane, like when if shit hits the fan, the oxygen masks
yeah,
fall out. You got to put the one on
yep,
yourself first. So you got to take care of
exactly.
yourself first, or you ain't no good to nobody
I
else,
know.
right?
Yep.
Yep.
And that's a perfect
Which is why
analogy.
I talk about that. I have so the chapters in my book, I talk about mindset and I talk about a little bit of my Air Force journey and stuff like that and what happened. The
Right.
second one's time management because it was funny because Jay said something about civilian life.
Yeah.
Well, you know, in the military, I had to be 20 people. So when I got out, I was still 20 people in my
Mhm.
mind, right? Like I didn't
Right.
know how to slow down. And so it ended up leading to a lot of overwhelm and a lot of anxiety and things like
Right.
that. And so chapter 3 in my book is self-care. And I talk about that. Like we have to take care of ourselves.
And while we're on that subject, let's talk about your book. Give us the name and where people can get it if they so
All
inclined.
right. It's called, so this is the first version. There's going to be another one because I got to share more of the story. But this is my daughter's on the front cover. It's called Reclaim Your Life. And it can be found on Amazon. It can be found anywhere really. But I ask people to buy it from my website. Is www.jodiwatkins.com/store. I ask people to go there because then they can get a signed copy. And
Oh, cool.
I like to personalize things as much as
Yeah,
possible.
too.
And the publishing company that I went through, that's a whole nother story in itself. But I know we don't have time for that. But kind of got screwed over there too.
Wow.
So I wasn't receiving royalties for a long time from the book, and I think during that time because I had been fighting for so long, I couldn't fight anymore,
You're just
and so I
tired.
just kind of let it be. I was just
Yeah.
tired. Yeah, I was super tired. So that's one of the reasons too that I ask people to come to my website. I do have a good friend. She's going to help me rebrand it and do all these other things. But for right now, I just ask people like, hey, just come to my website, get a copy. I'll sign it. And, you know, I try to connect with people too. I like to be able to connect with people and actually not just give them a book, but actually, you know, be that person for them if they need it.
You said
And
JodiWatkins.com, right?
Yeah.
/store.
/store. Yeah. I mean, you can go to the website and find it, but
Yeah.
yeah, just easier.
And also, Jodi, so you're also a coach, right? A personal coach. So
Right. Yeah.
do you practice all across the country, or you just stay in your local area, or how do
No,
you
I
do that?
actually, so I started online coaching when I was in Japan.
Okay.
I ended up, because I didn't really have enough time in the day to train everybody that wanted to train with me, which is a great problem to have, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's a good problem.
but
Yeah.
back then, you know, I was surrounded by military too. And so
Yeah.
everybody, you know, people would deploy, TDY, like, you know, it was really hard to just personal train people all the time. And so I ended up being connected with, there was a fitness app that a lot of fitness professionals used at that time. And I started using that. I had a couple clients that were willing to use it. I had one, she was going to do her first bikini competition. So I used to do bodybuilding too. Um, but she was a flight medic. And so she was not going to be able to work out with me very much.
Yeah.
And to do her nutrition and all that, I was like, okay, we got to use the app. And so she used it. She loved it. And after I got my master's degree in 2017, I ended up incorporating. So I did the LLC in 2017 while we were in Japan.
Nice.
Made a lot of mistakes, didn't know what the heck I was doing because they don't teach you business and business management, but
Right.
they don't teach you how to run a business.
My wife has a degree in business management and master's degree in business
Oh
management
my
too.
God.
Yeah. Same. Yeah.
Yeah, so they don't teach you. So she can attest to that. They
Right.
don't teach you that part. You got to figure it out.
So, are you taking clients if anybody's interested? Are you accepting any new
Yeah, I
clients?
have a total health program that I do based on my book. Just, you know, because I like to pour into people, and so I
Yeah.
have kind of a higher end program. But for people who just want the fitness and nutrition stuff, I actually started mentoring other personal trainers and teaching them how to go online and do it the right way, so they don't have to
Right.
make all the mistakes that I made.
Right.
Yeah, so I actually opened up the app as an online studio. So now personal trainers come in that it's independent contractor. They sign an agreement, they pay a certain percentage to the company, the other percentage goes to them. I mentor them, I make sure they're successful. They actually have become part of the health and fitness community inside of Convene Communities, which is basically partner with me. And we just kind of build things out, and they make, you know, they're able to help a lot more people. And that's the thing. And, you know, we can help people in person. And I do love in-person interaction. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong,
Right.
but I can help a whole lot more people when I'm able to do stuff like this, or when I'm able to like get on a Zoom call or whatever. And I don't want to be limited. That's my thing. I don't like to
Right.
be limited. I got it
Yeah.
limited enough in life, and I just don't. I don't
Exactly.
desire to be limited
That-
anymore.
So you say it's an app, right?
So there's a
On-
fitness. Yeah, we have a fitness app. So if you go, it's Linktree. You know, have you guys ever seen the Linktree?
Yeah.
When people have a lot of links, yeah. So that's me. I have a lot of links. so it's just Linktree/Jodi Watkins, and
Awesome.
you can go on there, and it's actually on my website as well. There's a tab on my website for the wellness coaching and stuff like that. So basically, I just ask people, set up a consultation, and we'll kind of just go from there. I'll see what program is best for you. Might match you with another coach. Let that go and see how it goes. But I usually end up being the mentor. So.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's not it. Let's talk about your podcast.
I do have a podcast. Yes. I started, it was funny. We were talking about that starting the things in 2020, right? Because COVID happened.
Right.
And what were most of us doing? Sitting around. And I think as veterans, we just don't do that very well.
No, we really don't.
Sit around
We really
very
don't.
well.
Either you're going to work out or you're going to drink a lot. One of the two.
Yeah. And it's funny because I actually started taking clients at my house during COVID because the gyms shut down. So I would had people coming over. I had a ton of workout. I was there was kids. We had that's a whole nother story too. I had a friend of mine and her 2 kids were living with us. So I would have the kids outside. We were doing kids fitness stuff outside. And so but I started my podcast. It's called Breaking Barriers Now. I really felt compelled to do that because, I have a voice and you guys have a voice. And when we bring, hundreds of voices together, we can actually create change, right? Like we can actually make a huge impact. And I knew with my mental health journey, and even though that was still early on and I was kind of just coming into it and kind of recognizing it, I wanted to hear other people's stories because I felt like if I heard other people's stories, it might actually motivate me a little bit to start sharing mine a little bit. And it did. And so I started the podcast. I had, some friends came on, people, business owners, whatever. But I didn't really have a great strategy around it. I kind of just started it.
Yeah.
So I started it and it started kind of not working out very well once, I was in Florida, so COVID started kind of going away really quickly
Florida
down there.
Quick,
Yeah, Florida didn't care. Florida it was like 2-3 days later. It was like, let's go to the beach.
Governor wasn't screwing around. He was like, drop this shit now.
So when stuff started opening up, right? Stuff started opening back up, and I was like, oh crap, now I can't do the podcast like I was doing it because I wasn't at home as much. And so then I tried another direction, and then I tried another direction, and literally like it was a blessing that I got linked up with this guy. His name's Tavares, and he is my back end person, and he just literally helps me keep it going. So I do all the write-ups, I do the podcast, I record it on Zoom, and I send him the audio, and he just puts out the audio.
Does it? And you're available everywhere. Are you available like most
all
platforms?
over? Yep. All
Apple,
over.
Spotify.
Breaking Barriers Now. Make sure you put the now on it because I did find out there's a lot of breaking barriers out there.
Can put that now.
So make sure you put the now, because we got to break them now. But yeah, it's been going really well. I have a lot of business owners that are coming on. Like I said earlier, we hit 80 countries last year, and I didn't even know that. I got the summary, and I was just like,
awesome.
"What? We got to keep going."
It's a hell of a message to be passing around. That's great. That's awesome.
Just one foot in front of the other. Keep going.
That's all you can do. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we just spent an hour or so with a hell of an American, Air Force vet, entrepreneur. I mean, a lady of many talents.
Yeah, I'm
but
trying
what
to
can you
make everything scroll on the bottom here?
I know. Yeah.
Too much stuff to scroll on the bottom here. Just click on a link tree. Everything from link tree because I'm clicking buttons over here. I'm trying to type, and it's not working for me because you got too much stuff that I got to put up on the screen. So
you know what I tell people?
Go to everything.
Go to the link. Connect with me. That's what I tell. But I do tell people, I'm like the thing about it was I have this thing too where it's called no titles needed. I was chasing titles my entire life because I wanted to be successful. Right? That's what society teaches us. You have to have some great title. You have to retire from the military. You have to whatever you're doing, you have to do this way, right? So now I know better. I don't need that. And so when I go to network now, it's amazing because I no longer put myself in a box. When people ask what I do, I say, what do you need in your life?
Yes.
And I might not do it, right? Like I might not do it, but I probably know somebody that does.
Exactly.
And so I just became this connector person. So I just connect people. But that's the thing. I tell people, I'm like, what you see today is me getting out of my way finally. And if I'm helping other people do that, I gotta be first. I gotta lead the way. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
I'll tell you what, guys, just Google Jodi Watkins.
You
The shit
can,
will
yes.
come, yeah, the stuff will come up, and I'm gonna buy a book ASAP. But Jodi, I'd say
Aw.
we spent an hour with you, and it's been phenomenal. You took us on a roller coaster ride, and I truly appreciate it.
That's the story of my life. Look,
Yeah.
and it never ends. I will say that if you're an entrepreneur, the roller coaster doesn't necessarily ever end. But when you surround yourself by other entrepreneurs that they're on the roller coaster too, you can keep yourself level. And that's what I try to do. We keep each other level, we keep each other grounded, and we just help each other keep going.
I try to put everything at the bottom. It look like it's a whole bunch of jumbles and stuff.
I know. I'm looking. I'm like, what in the world?
You can
Look,
see
Jay's
the
go to
LinkedIn
the
there,
link.
the podcast is there, the website is there, the book is there, everything is there.
You
gotta
did so
separate
good
yourself.
on that. You are quick too.
Dude,
I would just go to the
if
link
his-
tree.
if he
Everybody
had
just go
hair-
to the link tree, Google my name, and
Hold on,
connect.
time out.
If he had hair, it would be on fire right now.
I know. When I just had wrist surgery like 3 weeks,
Yeah,
2.5 weeks
right.
ago, and
Right
so it
when
was
it
funny
comes.
because my typing was really slow. Because I lost my right hand for a little bit, and so it's funny. I'm looking at this. Oh, he was typing fast. Like he's got this thing
No
rolling.
shit.
So, good job.
Yeah, good
I
job,
try.
man.
That's what I do. So I try.
No, I
But,
love
hey,
it. I love it. I love that you guys support other people. I mean, this is huge, and thank you for having me on. Thank you for taking
No,
the
our
time.
pleasure.
Thank you for allowing me to share my story, because sometimes I don't even know which direction to go in. so
yeah,
so thank you
exactly.
for kind of facilitating that and helping me get through it. But yeah, I'm grateful to still be here, to tell you the truth. I'm grateful. Jay, you mentioned what you went through. Heath, I don't know if you got a story like that, but I would love to have you guys on mine too, because
Oh, I'd love to be on it.
Oh yeah, I love the
we got to tell our stories, man. We got
Definitely,
to tell 'em.
definitely. I'm all for it.
So what I want to do is I want to put you on the main screen by yourself,
Yes.
and your last words of encouragement.
Yes.
Mm. All right. You guys, it doesn't matter what you go through in life, and it doesn't matter the pain that you have in your life. Your pain is your purpose. And when you get around the right people, you can literally change. You can make change and create change. Don't ever give up. Life is too short, and we are limitless. So be limitless, get around the right people, and never quit. Because when you quit, it's over. It doesn't matter how many failures you got. If you don't quit, you never fail. Mic drop.
Yes, I like it.
That's good. I don't even know.
Yeah.
I can just cut it off right now.
Yeah.
We're good.
I'm kind of proud of myself that
That was
I
good.
literally did that on the spot. That was pretty good.
That was awesome. On the
I want
fly.
the people
That
on
was
the spot.
good.
Just
Look at myself a pat on the back. Look, I
Heck
always tell
yeah.
my clients to celebrate their small successes. So I'm going to do that.
Oh,
too.
that was
Heck yeah.
that was
That was
great.
phenomenal.
We put people on the spot here, so we'll do that to you, and we won't let you know that's going to happen. So we want to make sure that it's just a surprise.
Nah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Hey, but thanks again. And ladies and gentlemen, we just spent an hour with a hell of an American, Jodi
Yes.
Watkins. Jodi, thank you so much for coming on the show. Everybody,
Thank you.
everybody, go out and get that book. Listen to that podcast. Hey, if you need coaching, hit her up. She's all over the place. You saw by Jay's a million links he just typed across the screen.
Just go to the link tree. It'll make it easier.
Yeah, right. So, Jodi, hey, we're going to close out, but please hang out for a second. I'd like to BS with you before we let you go.
That was a great episode. It was very informative. We spoke about mental health. We spoke about things that we've gone through in the military. People don't think that we really go through that much. They think that, hey, we're getting paid. We go out there, we have a good time. But there are things that we have to go through and stuff like that. So
in Jodi's case, she went through shit that happened before when she was a kid, and she just brought all that baggage with her in the military, and she had to deal with it then. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah, definitely. And I know my mom was watching this, and I know she probably heard some things that she didn't really know about me at that time. So this is a good outlet for other people. So if you want to, come on the podcast and tell your story. If you have a story to tell, you was in the military and you have a story to tell, just hit us up. Grumpy Old Vets. Is it Grumpy Old Vets Podcast at Gmail?
Is Grumpy Old Vets Podcast at gmail.com.
Yeah, so hit us up there. You can look us up on our Instagram is Grumpy Old Vets Podcast. Our Facebook
Twitter.
is Grumpy Old Vets. Everywhere you go is Grumpy Old Vets Podcast. So
Yep.
we're here to share with the world our stories.
Yeah, definitely. And remember, guys, a grumpy vet's a happy vet.
I don't even know what I was supposed to say after that. What was I supposed to say?
Boom! You don't say nothing. You just end it.